If you are 50 or older, still working, or just lost your job, this video is for you. Because what is happening right now is not a rumor. It is not a trend piece, and it is not going to blow over. It is a restructuring of the American workforce, and people in their 50s and 60s are sitting directly in the path of it. Let's talk about what is actually going on. The math, not the malice. Here is the first thing you need to understand. Companies are not targeting your age. They are targeting your cost. A senior employee in their 50s, someone who has spent 20 or 25 years building real expertise, might cost a company $120,000 a year or more. A junior replacement fresh out of college costs a third of that, sometimes less. When a CFO walks into a meeting and says, "We need to cut 10% this quarter," the finance team does not look at performance reviews. They open a spreadsheet, and on that spreadsheet, your name sits at the top of a very expensive column. That is not personal, but it feels personal, because it is your life. Now here is what makes this worse. The roles being eliminated are not the ones directly tied to revenue. They are the ones that hold everything together. Mid to senior individual contributors, middle management, HR, marketing, operations support. These roles are critical to how a company actually functions, but they do not show up on an invoice. And when cost-cutting season arrives, the CFO looks for the cleanest line items. High cost, low direct revenue link, fast savings. That profile describes millions of workers over 50. And then, there is the accelerant nobody wants to name directly. Artificial intelligence. Companies are not just cutting people to save money. They are cutting people to redirect that money into AI systems. Oracle, Microsoft, Meta. These are not struggling companies. These are enormously profitable companies, choosing to replace human cost with automation cost. Last year alone, nearly 240,000 tech workers lost their jobs globally. In 2026, over 73,000 jobs have already been cut, and we are not halfway through the year. And it is not just tech. Colleges are closing. Mid-sized firms are restructuring. Every industry is running the same calculation. The 40-plus worker is the fastest lever a company can pull. The wall nobody tells you about. Now let's talk about what happens after the layoff. Because this is the part that does not make the headlines. And it is worse than the layoff itself. Meet Carol. She is 57. She spent 22 years in operations management at a mid-sized manufacturing company. She was good at her job, genuinely good. When the restructuring came, she was let go with 2 months severance and a handshake. She updated her resume the next day. She started applying the week after. That was 14 months ago. Carol has not been hired. And Carol is not an outlier. She is the data. Workers over 50 remain unemployed nearly twice as long as younger workers. Only 55% of workers between the ages of 55 and 64 find new jobs within 3 years. For workers over 65, that number drops to 34%, which means 66% of them never find a job again. 1 in 4 workers aged 50 to 65 never return to work at all after a layoff. And 74% of older workers say they believe their age is a direct barrier to getting hired. That belief is not paranoia. The data confirms it. There is a detail that tells you everything about how broken this has become. Older workers are being told, quietly, informally, to remove any work history before the year 2000 from their resumes. Not because that experience does not matter, but because it reveals their age. And once a hiring manager does the math, the interview rarely happens. Think about what that means. Decades of expertise, quietly erased, just to get a call back. That is not a job market. That is a gauntlet. The retirement math, that does not add up. And here is where the layoff story becomes a retirement crisis story. Because these two things are not separate. They are the same trap, closing from both sides. You cannot get rehired. But you cannot retire either. Full retirement age is now 67. Benefits do not reach their maximum until 70. And the savings numbers for this generation are genuinely alarming. 48% of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement. Not $10,000 a month. $10,000 total. That is almost half the country. 26% of non-retired Americans have $0 in any kind of retirement account. Only 3% of adults in this country have $1 million saved. So here is what Carol's situation actually looks like on paper. She is 57. She cannot get hired. She cannot claim Social Security without penalty until 62 at the earliest. And at 62, she locks in a permanently reduced benefit for the rest of her life. Her savings are draining. Every month without income is a month she will never get back. She is not lazy. She is not unprepared. She did everything she was supposed to do, and the math still does not work. This is the squeeze that nobody is talking about loudly enough. Laid off before you can retire. Retirement age climbing. Savings inadequate. Social Security not enough to live on. No bridge between where you are and where you need to be. That is the real crisis. The wolves in the comments section. Now I want to stop here and say something directly to anyone watching this who is currently searching for answers after a layoff. There are people who are looking for you right now, and they do not have your best interests in mind. If you have spent any time on social media searching for what to do after losing your job at 55 or 60, you have seen them. The accounts follow a formula so consistent it is almost mechanical. Laid off at 58 after 25 years in corporate. Nobody would hire me. Then I found a blueprint. Now I make $300 to $900 a day working 2 hours. Free guide. Click below. Every single one of them ends with a course. Hundreds of dollars. Sometimes thousands. Promising digital marketing, automated income, financial freedom. All of it built on oversaturated strategies that will not produce what they claim. You will be out the money, and you will be no closer to a solution. The people selling these courses are not in your situation. They found a way to profit from your situation. There is a difference. Be careful what you click on. Be more careful what you pay for. What is actually true, and what to do with it. So let's come back to Carol. 14 months of silence. Hundreds of applications. A resume that keeps getting trimmed shorter, and a retirement account that is not where it needs to be. Here is what I would tell Carol, and what I want to tell you. The old system cannot see your value. That is real. Large companies running data-driven layoff models are not set up to measure what someone like Carol actually brings. The judgment built over decades, the ability to handle the situations that do not have a checklist, the relationships and pattern recognition that junior hires simply do not have yet. That is genuinely hard to measure on a spreadsheet. And because it is hard to measure, it gets cut. But that does not mean the value is gone. Smaller companies, mid-sized businesses, nonprofits, fractional consulting arrangements. These are environments where experience is not a liability. It is the product. A startup does not need someone to manage process. It needs someone who has seen what happens when process breaks down. That is a different conversation entirely. The one move I would tell Carol to make today is this. Stop competing for the same jobs at the same companies that laid people like her off. The market that does not want her is not the only market that exists. And for anyone still employed, watching this as a warning, not a current reality, the time to think about this is before the letter arrives. Not after. Your income is the engine, but an engine with no backup when it stalls leaves you stranded. Protect what you have built. Build what you have not started yet. And do not wait for the spreadsheet to make the decision for you.